Joining me live is Liberal Senator Holly Hughes and Assistant Defence Minister Matt Thistlethwaite. First to you, Holly, and good morning to you both. Are you worried about the lack of details that may turn off voters?
No, because details will continue to be rolled out as we get closer to the election. This is normal in any policy process that you make an announcement and the details and it'll be built up around it. But what we do know is the 7 sites have been announced, but we also know that they're going to be on brownfield sites where transmission lines, the water for cooling, all of those things are already present as we see 90% of our baseload coal-fired power stations start to go offline. So the details will continue to roll out as we get closer to the election, but I think it's very promising to see how supportive Australians are generally at putting nuclear in our energy mix.
Matt, a News Corp poll out today surveyed almost 1,000 randomly selected people that shows 60% support the idea of nuclear as part of Australia's energy mix. Does that concern you at all about how much support could be out there for nuclear?
It doesn't, Kenny, because the details haven't been released yet. And once the details are released, and I'm assuming they'll have to do this prior to the election because the Australian people have the right to know how much this energy policy is going to cost them. And we know that nuclear is the most expensive form of energy that there is. That's been confirmed by the CSIRO. So we're talking about a very large cost for this policy that will flow on to consumers. So they're going to face a very, very big increase in their electricity and their energy bills, but they don't know the details at the moment. The other point to make is that we simply don't have time. We're talking about 15 years before any of these nuclear power plants come online. We simply do not have time. We're in a climate emergency and we need to reduce emissions in a gradual process straight away. And that's what the government's policies do. We've got an increase in renewables, a gradual decrease in the reliance on fossil fuels, but through a gradual process that ensures that we have the cheapest form of energy and that energy costs come down.
The reality being, though, we are way off target of the 58 million solar panels required, the thousands of wind turbines that will be required. And when we want to talk about costs, energy experts are saying that Labor's plan with the 82% renewables, with new transmission lines, is going to cost around $1.5 trillion, yet we've got those in the Labor Party making juvenile memes and then talking about the cost of nuclear around $8.6 billion, considerably less than $1.5 trillion, because what Labor doesn't want to discuss is the distribution side of energy. That is about 50% of your bill. Nuclear, where they're being proposed by the coalition, would be able to connect straight to transmission lines, which would reduce cost. Plus, we're talking about Australia owning them as opposed to foreign interests coming in, putting up these renewable facilities for 20 to 30 years and then either vacating the space and leaving us with nothing or us having to pay enormous replacement costs.
OK, let's move on to another topic. Anthony Albanese, according to The Australian, will launch a political recovery strategy ahead of the winter break when Parliament returns for 2 weeks today, determined to focus on Labor's supermarket crackdown, tax cuts, energy subsidies and vaping reforms. Matt, is that the plan? Focus on the economy at all costs for the next 2 weeks?
We know that Australians are struggling with cost of living pressure at the moment related to interest rates and the inflation that we inherited from the previous government. But we've got a plan and a lot of that plan comes into force on the 1st of July. So there's a lot of relief coming for households, Kenny, on the 1st of July with tax cuts, the energy rebates start, increases in rent assistance, the supermarket reforms, the vaping reforms, all of these important policies that will assist households with their costs begin on the 1st of July. And the important thing is that the opposition, the Liberal and National parties, voted against all of them. They voted against energy bill relief. They voted against a lot of these policies that ensure that Australians get relief. And we're pretty confident that we've got a plan in place to assist people to get through this difficult period.
As the RBA continues to talk about the heavy spending by this government, putting increasing inflationary pressures. The fact that Matt still refers to the previous government when everyone has acknowledged, all economists and the RBA, that this is homegrown sticky inflation caused by this government's inability to restrain its spending, and that's going to just prolong this cost of living crisis for more and more families for much longer.
We're running a budget surplus.
Thank you to coal and iron ore. But we want to get rid of the resources sector producing that surplus.
We're saving more than we're spending.
We've got to get going, guys, but really appreciate your time this morning.